The only thing that seemed to keep that searing metal ring from rendering his fingers into ashes was the legion of terrifying images engulfing his mind as he wondered if his wife and daughter were being subjected to tortures that made his torments seem like grade school detention. Denise lunged for the book as soon as the phone rang and cursed when she realized it was no longer sitting on the driver's seat, where she placed it as soon as Darryl had exited the vehicle. She turned around to see if perhaps Kelly had borrowed it out of curious boredom, only to find her playing a cell phone game with the Zacathacan nowhere in the vicinity of her seat or the floor. She started to panic until she noticed her right coat pocket, where she'd placed the first ear, was glowing in a bizarre, insistent rhythm. She removed the ear, and as it became level with her eyes, the blinking stopped, even though the glow was just as powerful as it had been outside the antique nook. She impulsively aimed the ear towards the back of the car, and it started blinking, again, twice as rapidly as before. Then she realized that it was acting as a mystical GPS to lead her to where her absent-minded self, and hopefully nothing more lethal, had misplaced the book. She got out of the car, and the blinking stopped until she held the ear directly over the trunk, which, as her dysfunctional luck would have it, was locked. While Kelly groped around inside the cluttered glove compartment in search of the key, Denise became conscious of a small motor starting up a few feet to her right. She turned and realized that the discordant rumbling was coming from the discarded cart caddy, which was now slowly rolling towards her. "For God's sake, hurry up with that key!" she pleaded with her daughter as she leaped onto the trunk to avoid being crushed by the approaching caddy. "I found it!" Kelly called out to her after what seemed like a millennium. "Open the left passenger side window and hand it to me," she instructed as she unsuccessfully tried to keep the terror racing through her nerves from spreading to Kelly. "What's going on out there?" asked Kelly fearfully. "Never mind, it'll all be over as soon as you give me the key and I can get the book out of the trunk," her mother replied with rapidly diminishing confidence as the caddy rolled back and forth across the alley. Kelly rolled down the window and handed Denise the key. She slowly climbed down from the trunk, vigilantly monitoring the caddy's movements as she inserted the key in the lock and gave the handle a prayerful tug. She grabbed the book and sprinted around to the left side of the car. She was less than 2 feet from the driver's side door when the caddy reversed course and came at her so abruptly she dropped the book as she leaped onto a dumpster. Fortunately, Kelly was able to open the door, scoop up the priceless volume, and toss it onto the seat next to her a split second before the caddy would have ground it into unsalvageable pulp. The ear was still marking the page that had spared Darryl from the horrors at the antique nook. But as soon as Kelly removed it, the caddy slammed it to the left side of the car, shattering the driver's side window. As she tried to shield her face from the torrent of shards rushing at her, she dropped the ear on the floor of the vehicle. As she bent down to retrieve it, the caddy rammed the front bumper with such force that if Kelly hadn't been securely buckled in, her head would have suffered a fatal collision with the dashboard. As it was, she was almost too dazed to wrap her quivering fingers around the ear and toss it onto the open pages of the book, which began flipping immediately. "Are you all right in there?" her mother cried out from atop the dumpster. "I'm a little shaken up, but I don't think I busted anything," replied Kelly, even though the pain that had begun to flare up in her collarbone right after the second collision was an indisputable indication that she'd be suffering from whiplash for the next week. She picked up the book and eyed the spell that the ear had illuminated, but before she could determine the correct pronunciation, a green ball of fire shot out from the light at the top of the caddy, igniting the tall brush surrounding the dumpster. Then he screamed and leaped over the chain-link fence behind the dumpster. Kelly couldn't figure out whether it was the pain, the knick-knack, or both that was causing the words in front of her to become blurrier and blurrier until they were nothing but an indecipherable gray cloud as her mother crouched behind an oak tree on the other side of the fence, pleading with her to hurry up and find the spell to stop the caddy from launching another fireball. Darryl could see everything that was transpiring in that alley as clearly as if he was standing next to the car, and yet even though he knew he had a slim chance of making it past the inanimate blades and through the opening where the flattened cardboard dropped into the dumpster at the back of the building, his fingers seemed to be welded to that lava-hot handle. What was almost as unnerving was that while his digits were pulsating with hellish agony, they didn't appear to be even slightly singed. "Have I died and gone to hell?" he asked himself. "Dear God, what unforgivable sin have we committed to cause you to reject us like this?" The caddy reared back and prepared to hurl another flaming spear at Denise. The Vesuvian rumbling of the knick-knack-possessed motor left no doubt in Kelly and Denise's panic-petrified minds that the machine would not fail to hit its target. Like Daryl, their only defense was to throw themselves on God's compassion and try to convince him that they didn't deserve to be abandoned by him for their misguided meddling with the occult. Suddenly, the voice of Tamara Phillips rose up from Kelly's throat and challenged the demon inside the caddy with an authoritative cry of "Asinomet Dretmo Nimiet Nima." The caddy lunged forward and crashed into the dumpster, shattering the bulb and disengaging the card catcher. As the motor expired, never to be restarted again by man or demon, it was clear that the machine was now twice as uselessly inanimate as it had been when Daryl had first parked next to it.